watch a lot of YouTube. I don't even know if you guys can hear me from here, so maybe this will never actually get seen, depending on what the sound sounds like. But I watch a lot of YouTube, like Vice Grip Garage, Pro Bar Garage, a lot of revival stuff. And one of the really cool things about some of the revival stuff is in North America, you can kind of put something together with a bunch of spare parts, and depending on the state or the province you live in, chances are you can get on the road. Where I'm from, in Quebec, as long as the vehicle's been registered in Quebec and has some registration from somewhere, you can pretty much get the car back on the road without going through a mechanical inspection. If you bring the car in from another province, well, then it has to go through a full mechanical inspection, and that's sometimes difficult with an older car. Right now, I'm in Portugal. And in Portugal, as in much of the European Union, vehicles have to be inspected every year. Unless they're brand new, and I think you get a 3-year waiver when they're brand new. So getting your 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old car that you're using as a daily to pass inspection is not easy unless you keep up with it. So you have to keep it maintained, because they check everything. They check all the bushings, they check the shocks, they check the brakes. Your brakes have to pull evenly. There's an emissions test. There's corrosion, all kinds of things. In southern Portugal, it's not so bad. So if the car's been in southern Portugal for a long time, or for most of its life, the cars stay pretty clean. There's always cars that look a bit crap, but sometimes it's only just skidding. The majority of the cars that I've purchased, and I've bought a few here, have come from the north. And getting cars from the north is difficult. They do have snow up there, and depending on how the car has been treated, how often it's been maintained, how much use the car has, that all impacts the car. The car I'm standing in front of is a car that I told my friends was ODP spec, and that's old dead people. So I literally bought this car from the estate of a gentleman that passed. The nephew was the one that was brokering the sale for his 3 aunts. So I actually had to sign documents at a lawyer that there was 3 sellers. So all 3 of the daughters of the gentleman that passed away had to sign off on the car. And I bought this car last year, maybe around this time, and it had already been inspected. Now, what happens in some countries and in some places, depending on how well you know the people at the inspection center, and if you have friends, cars can get passed. And I'll show you an example of one afterwards that was in theory in really good shape, but when I actually got it home, wasn't in that good a shape. This car seemed to be okay, and the deal I did with the gentleman was I paid this car 700 euros. So in US dollars, it's, I don't know, maybe about $1,000. And the only reason I bought this car is I'm going with my nephew and my daughter's boyfriend this year in May to Nurburgring. I'd done it in 24. Not with this car, with an even older car than this. This is, I think it's registered as a 97. 98. So this is a 98, December 98. And that means that every December the car needs to be inspected. I just had it done, and today is end of January. So I legally drove this car to the inspection center, but I figured what that. So this was the first year I was doing the inspection. Prior to doing the inspection, I replaced the brakes, I changed the oil, the filters, I did spark plugs. It was missing a third brake light, so I don't know how how it passed inspection, and it had a few little bulbs out. That seemed to be about it. So when I was driving it back from up north to down south where my parents' house is, just before leaving, the gentleman pointed out that there's a quart of oil in the trunk in case I need it. Well, I needed it, and I needed much more. So this car does consume oil. I don't think it burns it through the rings. I think it just burns it, or it sucks it down through the valve seals. The car runs great, but I was a little bit concerned with it not passing emissions. And it was touch and go for it to pass the inspection on the emissions. You have to rev to a certain amount, and it was really difficult to get the CO2 value to come into alignment with the requirements, because different cars have different values and characteristics. They photograph your car going in, that's done automatically, so you can't fudge, send another car. And everything is logged in that car. So they know exactly what the emissions is, how the brake test went, whether or not all the lights work, the wipers, the windshield washer, fluid coming out, the horn, all that stuff. So I basically gave the car the once over late last summer. When I arrived now in January, I went through it again. I found another bulb that wasn't working, it was quite corroded. I installed a third brake light that I was able to find, which is really hard to find these days. Kind of these, universal brake lights. Anyway, got that installed, and a few bits and pieces. Made sure the tires were well inflated. Started up, drove it to the inspection. The car passed, and when the car passes, which you get, and guys in the UK will know this because they have a very similar thing. So in Europe, or at least in Portugal here, you get PID, which is a periodic inspection. And then if there's any notation, so minor things that don't make it fail, but they're like advisories, then they're listed here. And ideally, you get no advisories. So I got no advisories. I was really happy with that. So the car is ready to go. Today, I did just a few little things. I installed an RPM indicator in it because this is a base spec car. So this is a 1.4, 5-speed, I don't even know what version of this is, a Renault Megane. And why did I pick a Renault Megane? I picked it because it was 700 euros. And we needed something that was relatively cheap and something that I could consider a throwaway. So ideally, it's insured, the plates are registered, I now have my inspection. The car is ready to go anywhere in the world. And so this May, we're going to drive it to Germany and do a few laps with it. Is it going to be fast? No, it's not going to be fast. But it doesn't matter, right? I don't have GT2 RS money, and even if I did, I don't think I'd go there with it. I think the Nurburgring is kind of one of the places where talent doesn't equal bank account balance. So I've told my nephew and I've told Alex, we're just going to go have fun. And we get to soak in the same atmosphere, whether you show it as a $250,000 car or one that costs $1,000. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take 2 weeks. It's going to be 5,000 kilometers. All we have to do is pack a bunch of oil. So this car will just sort of self-change oil as we drive down the road, and all we got to do is pretty much every time we put in gas, we got to check the oil level and top it up. Is it annoying? Yeah. Is it going to cost a little bit? Yeah. But what was the alternative? Buy something better? I bought this car because I had a spare day in Spain and I drove to Portugal. Can you do this? I don't know. I can do this because I'm a Portuguese Portuguese citizen. So I have a Portuguese passport, I have Portuguese citizenship, I have a registered address here at my parents' place. And so I buy this car just like a local does. Buying cars in Europe to drive around is a little bit difficult. I've looked into it in Spain, I've looked into it in France. It's not easy. If you live there and you're registered, at least registered living there, then you can do it. If you have whatever that called, like proof of residency. In the UK, I think you can get it done, but the insurance is really, really expensive. So it's not for everybody. But what I kind of wanted to do was have you understand that what we see in the US and in a lot of places in Canada, we can't really do here in Europe. So the car is type approved, and when they say type approved, that means everything. So this is a 1.4. I cannot put in a 1.6 or 2 liter. The car has a certain size of tire and rim. I gotta do that. I can change those things, but I have to pay an engineering cost in order to change the size of the rims. Even though other people may have done it, it doesn't necessarily apply. So whatever is done doesn't apply to your car. It's like single vehicle authority to do everything here. You want tinted windows, you gotta apply for it, and you gotta pay. You wanna change the color of the car, you gotta pay. Changing the color isn't as expensive as everything else, but anything that's engineering-wise, you gotta pay. You wanna lower it, you gotta pay. So we don't have that same level of flexibility that we have in, say, North America. That's the only experience I have, right? So I bought cars in the States, I buy tons of cars in Canada. Once they're there, you can pretty much do whatever you want within reason, and even some unreasonable things you can get done. Here in Europe, it's a completely different thing, and it's just what you got is what you got. And if you're buying really high-po cars, that's the reason you buy them, is because you want the big wheels, the huge motor, all of that stuff. For you to take your street car and make it into the high-po version of it is crazy expensive. And the really neat thing in Portugal is cars are crazy expensive. So a really nice 5 Series BMW E39 is really big bucks, huge, 8,000 euros. Like that's 10, 12,000 bucks. And that's not anything. That's just pretty much, a base model car. You can find cheaper ones, but they're going to be like super low specs we don't even have in North America, and they're going to be beat to snot. So anything that's rear-wheel drive obviously has drift tax here as well. And classic cars are somewhat affordable, but what they have in terms of collectibles here, for instance, an MGB, well, you're paying 15 to 30,000 euros. A Spitfire, the same thing. A Mustang, like a 6-cylinder Mustang, like mid-60s Mustang, that's 40, 50, 60,000 euros, crazy money. And importing a car from another jurisdiction, Portugal, forget it. I mean, the tax would just kill you. So the reason I like buying older cars is something like this pays very little, what they call road tax. I think I paid, it's under 50 euros for sure. Insurance is dirt cheap. It's obviously only one way, but I get full coverage in terms of travel assistance. If I break down in Germany, they'll tow this thing back. All kinds of stuff. But obviously, if I put it in a ditch, then I gotta pay for it. I don't care. So it doesn't have comprehensive, and I wouldn't want it. One of the reasons I picked this car was, even though it was old dead person spec, it was relatively clean. It was pretty straight. It looked pretty honest. The car had something like 3,000 kilometers, so under 100,000 miles. Clutch was good, the brakes were decent, and the tires were pretty fair. The ones in the front had been replaced. That's another thing people do here. Very rarely will people buy 4 tires. They'll buy them in pairs, but man, you're pushing it. So the front tires were relatively new. The rear tires, I don't even know, but they've got a lot of tread, so they're fine for the purpose. Inside was relatively clean. The engine and engine compartment were also relatively clean. And again, we're talking $1,000 car. So if we look in North America today, what you buy for $1,000 is absolute trash. Here in Portugal, if you go for the lower end cars, which there's a lot of, so lower spec, less desirable cars, you can find something really decent still for under 1,500 bucks. So under €1,000. And that's kind of my sweet spot. That's what I look at. When I'm typically buying anything or I'm hunting around, and I do so a lot, I always try and buy under €1,000. Because you can walk away from that, right? How much lower can the value get unless you put it into a ditch or a tree or whatever? But you can't try and jump. You end up having to have a decent car. It has to pass inspection. And it's a comprehensive inspection. It's not just lights and things. Other than that, what else is there? That's kind of the biggest change between North America and Europe. So I'm sure there's a lot of European guys that watch the exact same channels that I do, and they kind of dream of the stuff that we get to do on the other side of the pond. And by the same token, there are folks in North America that say, man, they got really cool cars in Europe, and they do, but you're gonna pay for the really cool ones. You're not going to get, a Lancia Integrale for much under 75,000 euros in Portugal if you can find one. But I mean, I've seen some crazy cars here in the few years that I've been coming back here. So do they have good stuff? Yeah. Is there people with money here? Huge. But it's not for the mere mortals. The mere mortals will drive regular mundane cars. I'll give you a peek at one that I have now owned. I think it's 12 years here. And I bought this to go do an event with my dad. And I had this one inspected while I was here as well. So that's a November car. And it's a car that's really prone to rust, and it passed. But I try and stay on top of it, and it's difficult. It's getting harder to do because parts are a problem. So over here, we have my Fiat 128. It looks pretty good here, but if you were to look really close, there's some scary things. That's my dad's old Seat. This is my everyday runaround car. Diesel, turbo diesel, 5-speed, 200,000 kilometers. It's not even at half-life. It's basically a Volkswagen Jetta with a hatchback. And I think everything works. Air conditioning works, everything works. And this car is it's a 2000. So this car is 26 years old, and I have no intention of ever replacing it. So this is the back of the Megane. And again, I bought it because it wasn't ugly. Like, it looked okay. And I did some finishing on the wheels, mainly because that was plastic and it was all chipped and faded. And if you squint really hard, it kind of looks a little bit like Pontiac-ish, but you got to squint pretty hard. Inside, it's relatively clean. The gentleman I bought it from actually even put brand new floor mats in it, so he was a really nice guy. there's the new RPM I put in. The best Chinesium quality possible. And the car starts pretty good. I don't know what I did with the keys. Goes good, there's no check engine light. You can't, it won't pass inspection if any of those kinds of things are on. And like I said, it's relatively clean. It seems to be running good. It has very sophisticated single point fuel injection. So this is really bottom of the barrel for Renault. It was literally probably the cheapest Megane you could buy. There might have been a cheaper one with plastic bumpers, like black plastic bumpers. But other than that, and here's what I mean about buying a pretty decent car. So what you don't want is corrosion. And so that's what sold me on this car. Very little, if any, rust, very little, if any, body damage. And that gave me the confidence that this was probably the right car to take to Germany. Again, it's not gonna set the world on fire, but I'm gonna give two young guys a chance to go to Nurburgring, drive something, and have no concern whether or not they damage the engine or put it in the weeds or do anything. We're not going to put it in the wall. We're not going to do any of that nonsense. We're not going to drive hard enough to get into trouble because nobody has that kind of money, and there's no point. We still got to drive it back. So it's 2,500K from here to there, and it's 2,500 back. That Fiat, I did that with the Fiat. I did 5,000 kilometers and a lap of the Nurburgring 2 years ago. So if that Fiat can do it, and it's only 1,100 cc, 4-speed, this thing's gonna be a cakewalk. So that was it. Obviously, since I have absolutely no editing skills, I had to do this in one take. Hopefully this comes out decent. I said, I'll just show the difference. Compare it to, what guys have to do here versus what guys have, can get away with on our side of the pond. And obviously there's guys that do all kinds of stuff, and there's guys that do modifications, and there's guys that run, crazy tire combinations and don't have approval. But what happens is either the car gets seized or the documents get seized if they catch you. And if the documents get seized and you don't put it right, well, you can't even sell the car. Because you can't get duplicate titles, you can't get duplicate anything here. You gotta keep the originals. And if you lose a registration, even if the car's been parked for 50 years, and if you've lost the registration, it's a big pain in the butt to get it re-registered. So, your little piece of paper, now it comes on a credit card size thing, which is actually kind of cool. That thing is gold. You really need to have that. And that's it. So, folks in the States, this is what it takes to run a car, any car, at at least in Portugal and most of Europe. And guys in Europe, well, you have a reason to be jealous. Yeah, we can do a lot of crazy stuff on our side of the pond, but that doesn't mean it's going to be forever either. So there's not one thing that's better than the other. And that's it. So hopefully this gets put up. Maybe somebody sees it. And if it sounds like crap, then I'll just take it down. All right. Have a good one.